Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Millie's Bayside Chats, where we are live streaming to bring some calm to the chaos of your PCS. Twice a week, sometimes more, we interview a duty station expert to get the dish on PCSing to a location. So we'll chat about schools, neighborhoods, climate, culture, commute, and more. So bring your questions and we will be sure to answer them. We'll also share best practices, things we wish we'd known, and more. So be sure to tune in every week because you never know. I'm your host, Kelly Artis, and I am so happy you're here. So today, everyone, I have a special guest. I actually had the opportunity to meet Amanda. Oh my goodness, it's probably been a couple of years now, and learn more about her journey as being an Air Force veteran and then transitioning into becoming a military spouse, which I know happens quite frequently. So I am really excited to chat with her just about her experience and some of the awesome things that she's doing in our community. And then also, of course, talk to her about her PCS to the DC metro area. And you guys, I know it seems like we've done several of these chats, but it is a big enough area to commit several episodes too. So without any further ado, I want to bring Amanda on to introduce you guys. Hey everybody. Hey Amanda.
Hi.
Thank you.
So glad to be here.
Yes, we almost had a preschool field trip foil our plans, but we made it happen anyway.
We did.
Yes. So Amanda, take a second and tell everyone about yourself, about what you're doing, and what brought you to the DC area.
I am, like you said, I'm an Air Force veteran and military spouse. I have almost been a military spouse longer than I've been a veteran or was in the Air Force. It's like almost, I was in for 6 years and I'm approaching my 6-year mark very soon. So I started a blog when I left the Air Force called Airman to Mom, and I talked about what it's like to be both a military spouse and a veteran. And this last January, I launched a podcast called Women of the Military, where I share the stories of female service members and what it was like to be in the military. And we were in LA last summer. I'm blanking. And we moved from LA to Virginia, and we're in Northern Virginia in Chantilly, which is, I don't really know where we are. We live somewhere. We're about 40 minutes from DC, and we're kind of on the edge of like the suburbs and like the hills. And
you're starting to get out towards the airport and everything. I tell you what, I will pull up a map. So tell us a little bit about what drove your decision to kind of focus in on that area. How did you decide on that?
Well, my husband isn't attached to a base. He's attached to a small unit. So he's at an office complex, and it's actually in Chantilly. So we were in LA, and we were about 30 minutes from the base, and we didn't want, everyone talked about how bad the traffic was in DC. So my husband was like, I don't want to have to commute. I want to be as close to where I work as possible. And so we were able to find a house in Chantilly, and we looked in Chantilly and Centerville and up in Herndon and a few other places. We were kind of limited by where we could look. There's South Riding and Aldi, but they were a little bit more expensive, and so we tried to stick under 500,000, and we were able to do that, so that was exciting.
That's, sorry, I just found our map. Hang on, let me see if I can screen share. There we go. So this is on, you guys, this is on our Millie DC or DMV area base guide. So we've got Virginia, Maryland, Washington, DC. This is kind of zoomed out, but we do have Chantilly all the way over here because we know that's a popular area. And again, like you mentioned, there's some office buildings there that you can occasionally be attached to. So if you notice, here's Pentagon. So you had mentioned to me that some of your services are way over here at the Pentagon. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about what that's like.
Well, actually, my husband's dental office is at the Pentagon, so he has to go once a year to the Pentagon to get his teeth cleaned, which is kind of funny. And then the Airman and Family Readiness Center, and I'm not sure what else they have, but I know they came out. They come out like twice a year, and they do a briefing to let you know what services they have. The only bad part is it's like, I mean, an hour away, and it's the Pentagon, so like finding parking and all that stuff. So it's not like very accessible.
Yeah. And so
So
tell me about like childcare. Do you have experience with that or knowledge of that? Like where would you go for a CDC and other things like medical care and stuff like that?
one of my friends lives in Burke, and she says that there are, which is not too far away, it's like 20, 30 minutes, and there's little like CDC sites, but the way that they're set up, civilians can be in them, and you go on a wait list, and it can take like a year or two to get into the CDCs that are like whichever one's closest to you. And like military, we move, so
Mm-hmm.
we finally get in and then we move, but the civilians often don't move, so they kind of like take the spot. So it's really hard to get into
Mm.
the CDCs, from what I've heard. I work part-time and I have preschool, so I was able to find a preschool after we moved here that still had openings, and there's lots of preschools around. So um, and I would say the prices are, I looked at preschools in LA, but I haven't looked anywhere else, so I would say it's comparable to LA. It's not like, it's probably expensive compared to other places, but
So
I've only.
I love your mindset. You're like, we got on talking earlier. You were like, yeah, everyone said the traffic was bad, but meh. And everyone said the prices are bad, but meh. Because it's all perspective. I think if you're coming
Yeah,
from
like
like
we were
LA
like,
or
under
Hawaii,
500,000
yeah,
for a house, that's a deal.
what? Give me three of them. Yeah. I can totally
Yes.
see that. Okay, and so you brought up another good point. So tell me about maybe some of the area's evolution and what is coming to the area that might affect some home prices and some decisions that could almost impact everything, really.
Yeah. Yeah, well, Amazon is coming to Crystal City for sure. And they, with the pullout of New York, they said they were coming to Virginia for everything. So no one really knows what that means, if they're going to all go to Crystal City or if they're going to go. There was another location that was just north of Dulles that was like in the final running. So it could be that they're going to go there, which would have a huge impact. But just the sheer number of people that live in the DC area, and with Amazon coming, it's not just Amazon. All these other like smaller companies come to
Right.
support Amazon.
Yeah.
So it's a huge impact. And like some of those companies won't be in Crystal City, they'll be in the area around, and it just pushes
Yep.
everybody farther away from like the DC area because those prices are going up. And
So I'm
yeah.
seeing two big perks, and these are gonna be my perks. One is you're gonna have like coffee delivery in 30 minutes from Amazon by
That's true.
drone. Like I had, did I have same day delivery? I had same day delivery when I lived there on Amazon Prime. So you better believe y'all are gonna get like in an hour deliveries from whatever you need from Amazon
That's what
Prime,
they had in LA, yeah.
which is amazing. And then also, Amazon does a ton of military hiring and military spouse
Hmm.
initiatives. So I'm not personally plugged into anyone there, but I'm sure some folks in the group are. So if you guys are out there, job seeking and you're headed to the DC area, I would definitely start getting tuned in to see what kind of positions might be available on location as well as remotely, because I know they hire for both. So yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, and this is a headquarters building, so it's not like a warehouse, so it's like
Yeah,
high paying jobs.
right.
So it's, I mean, it's really exciting for the area. But I know my friend just put her house on the market on like Thursday or something last week, and she already had a bunch of offers and is under
What?
contract. And like it was only on the market for a week or so, It's not, it's crazy. When
Yeah.
houses go on the market, they're gone within like a week.
Yeah, well, and it's been like that for a long time, and I can only see it going up and up from here, right? Which is exciting. And
Hmm.
also, you guys, if you're thinking about an area to invest in a property, this might be a good one to think about. I mean, some places maybe not. This DC area,
Right.
I mean, it's a good idea. Also, though, you definitely want to connect with a realtor that knows what they're doing and knows the area
Hmm.
and can advise you well. And we're going to recommend that you work with someone that has some military service experience or some sort of affiliation, because they're going to have a better knowledge of things like the VA loan benefit that you have available to you that kind of makes it possible for
Right.
to own a home in the DC area. There's some limits. You can get like they call it like a jumbo loan or something in that area. So it's not just your typical limitations on how much the benefit
Right.
is there, because the home values are so high there that they'll bump that
That's true.
up. So, I mean, I know, and then that's another whole overwhelming thing, and I have to plug it really quickly. I don't know if you guys have been in groups before where it's like, hey, I need a realtor, and you get like 8,000 recommendations, and you might as well just Googled it, right? Because you have no idea where you're starting from. We have a network called the Agent Hero Network where we do all the vetting for you. So first criteria, you have to be a veteran or a military spouse real estate agent. Second criteria, you have to have been in business for over 5 years. So you've got to establish yourself. You have to do a certain amount of transactions every year. This is your main gig that you're going to spend all of your time and energy on caring for these customers. So we make sure to vet based on all of these criteria. And then all you, as a potential home buyer or seller, has to do is log into our site, send us your information, and we will personally pair you with someone in your area. So if you're looking at buying a house, especially in one of these really crazy high markets, where you could walk away with a significant investment opportunity, definitely do that. So thank you for that tip, Amanda. That's awesome.
And one of the hard parts I think about living in the DC, especially with BH, like going down where it's like 95%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're going. Like 95% in like Ohio is not nearly as much as what it is here. So I feel like that's like one of the hardest parts about here because BH went down last year, and with the market going up, you'd think things were going up, but because of that adjustment with it's like it's gonna be really hard. It's really hard to like find a house, and
yeah, and so that's a good point too, and I think a lot of people miss that and maybe write off owning a home. Oh, we're in the military, we can't own homes until we get out, right? Because I think that's usually kind of the thought. BAH is only meant to cover, it's not supposed to cover all of your housing expenses. Like it's only supposed to cover I think it's 87 or 85% of your, rent plus utilities. So it's assumed that you're going to come out of pocket, right? That's kind of the way the system was set up to accommodate for. So it gets really tricky when you're in a place like DC, especially if you want to rent. You're pretty much always going to come out of pocket if you're renting. I mean, it's just really hard, or you're sacrificing something big, right? So our 3 rules, or our 3 things that we say about the DC area is you're going to get 1, maybe 2 of these 3 things, but never all 3. So it's home price, home size, or commute. So you have to pick your priorities. You got to stack those up and see which one you're willing to let go of. So in your case, well, your commute's not bad because you guys live where you work, which is amazing. But let's say you were commuting to the Pentagon, or your spouse was commuting to the Pentagon. That's going to be a sacrifice. That's an hour,
the
maybe.
Part is our BAH is the same as what the Pentagon gets, and we're out in Chantilly, and like if you were closer, it'd be even more expensive.
It would be more, but you probably have more space. Yeah. Do you have a bigger house than what you would? Yeah.
Well, we have a yard, and we have like 1,600 square feet in the basement. I have an office that's just an office.
You have an office that's just I know. I was just commenting on that. I'm like, what a cool. I have a bed right there. So.
Yeah, we got really lucky. So. Yeah. But we didn't want a big house because we were in LA. We didn't have a very big house, and I liked having the smaller. Yeah. Because you can get like mansions essentially out here, like the farther. Because in Gainesville, which is like 20, 30, which a lot of people like to live there, right? Who work at the where my husband works, because you get bigger houses. Like you can get 5,000 square feet, and you can get the land, and you can. And the good thing about this area is like the schools are good, so you're not really worried about like where you end up school wise, as long as you're in Chantilly.
We've definitely heard that too. I mean, a lot of because are you in Fairfax County? Yeah, right. Okay, so
barely.
Yeah, you guys are way out there. And so just so y'all know, if you don't already, there's 2 airports. There's Dulles and there's Reagan that kind of service the DC metro area. And I guess BWI, like Baltimore, that I guess technically.
Yeah, I guess if you're in.
That's over in Maryland. So you guys are definitely closer to Dulles, which is cool because Dulles seems to fly everywhere, whereas Reagan seems selective. I don't know. I have a hard time flying in and out of there.
And my husband goes to TUI all the time. So
yeah. So I want to say hey to Marla. Hey, Marla. Thanks for joining us. Emily. Hey, girl. What's up? And Nuri. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you guys have any questions or comments or feedback about the DC area, go ahead and throw them in the comments. We'd love to add your voice to the conversation. Okay, cool. If we get any questions about Chantilly specifically or the Northern Virginia area, I still want to answer those as we go along. But I would love to talk a little bit more about Airman to Mom and your new podcast. Okay. So tell us a little bit about how that kind of evolved and came to be.
Airman to Mom?
Yeah.
I left the military. I was an Air Force civil engineer, and I had deployed to Afghanistan in 2010, and then in 2012, I got pregnant with my first son. And so, with my husband being in the Air Force and me being in the Air Force, and our career fields didn't really mesh really well, we knew that at some point, I would have to get out or he would have to get out. And since my career field deployed a lot, it made more sense for me to get out of the Air Force. So I was like, I'm going to get out of the Air Force. It's going to be so easy because I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom. Yeah, it was not easy. um, my It didn't help that my husband went to, they call it squadron officer school, 2 months after my son was born, and he literally like stopped sleeping because my husband left, I guess. And so yeah, it was like the longest 8 weeks of my life. And so it was really hard transition to go from being in the Air Force and then becoming a mom and feeling like I wasn't a good parent because I didn't know how to make this baby sleep or do anything that the books tell you that you should do, because books are they're just thrown away.
Garbage. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
And so I started this thing called 5-Minute Friday. So every Friday I would write for 5 minutes, and you don't edit it, you would just write it. And then I would post it in the comments of the blogger that I was following, and I was like, if I can write for 5 minutes each week, this will be an accomplishment. And I think Luke was like 4 or 6 months old when I was doing that. And so then I really enjoyed writing, and so I started doing that. And so I started my blog called Airman to Mom, and it's kind of about everything. Because, if you write about everything, everyone will listen.
That's right.
But then I learned a lot about blogging, and so I've kind of like narrowed in. And the more I narrowed in, the more I realized the female veteran part of my blog was what was unique and different from other military spouses who are writing, because there's a lot of military spouse bloggers, but not a lot of military spouse bloggers who are veterans. And so I kind of went on this path, and I kept applying for like podcasts. Like after we went to MIC together, Military Influencer Conference, I would start applying, and I'd be like, hey, can I be on your podcast? I want to talk about my military experience. And they would be like, no. It was always guys, and they were like, no, they would come up with some like excuse, and I was like, you're just making up some excuse. So then I was like, well, then I'm going to start my own podcast.
That's right.
And so it's been amazing, all the women who have wanted to be on the podcast. And I think the reason that I love doing it so much is not every time, but every once in a while, someone will be like, I haven't told anyone about this.
Aww.
I haven't talked to anyone about and yesterday, one of the ladies started crying, which is not like, she was talking about it, and she hadn't really talked about it in a long time. And so it was just like telling her story and getting it out there for, people to hear. It's emotional, and it's kind of like a healing process. Especially for me, it's like therapy to talk to other women about their experiences. So
yeah, I think that's fantastic, and I think you're doing such a great thing in this community. And you're right, there are niches for everything, right? But the reality is that you're talking about a very marginalized voice. I mean, women in the workplace in general, right? So we're still kind of overcoming all these crazy obstacles. And then you're also shedding light on what it's like to be a woman in the service, which is something that I don't relate to. I mean, I have massive amounts of respect for and have tons of friends that are veterans. But it's interesting too. I find that it seems like people, especially the female military spouses that I know, feel like they have to choose between one identity. Like you can't, like they can't coexist. You can't be a veteran and a military spouse. And I think it's fascinating that some of the veterans that I know have kind of hung up their veteran identity and they claim military spouse because that's what's working for them right now, not to their fault by any sense of the word. I mean, you do what you do, right? Like you mesh into the community that you're in, but I just think that stinks. Like that seems like an unfair sacrifice that you're intentionally or unintentionally having to make just based on culture. I don't know. So how do you feel about it? Do you feel like that's a valid observation, or?
It's normal for female veterans. I don't know if it's normal for male veterans, but it's normal that they like run away from their being a veteran, or they like, because like the VFW isn't really a good fit for a female veteran, and like so there's not. I'm learning a lot about all the different organizations, but I feel like that's happened in the last 6 years. But when I got out, that was kind of like, I was like, I don't even want to write about military stuff because I just want to be Amanda. I don't want to be Amanda.
I could see
and
that.
so it's like you kind of lose your identity of being in the Air Force, and then you're like a military spouse. And so it's kind of, I don't know. I've had a few people on the podcast talk about how like they left and they were like, I don't want anything to do with the military. And then now, years later, they're making their way back to being more involved in the veteran space. So
yeah, I'm sure it all has to do with their experience too. And that probably ranges the gamut of, good to bad to horrible.
Yeah. Well, it's hard because, well, even at the influencer conference, I got a lot of people thinking I was a spouse,
Sure.
and like their look of shock when I said I was a veteran, I was like, it's not that shocking.
And so I would even say the flip is interesting too, because if you were to be like, which you weren't, but let's pretend like you're like, I'm not a spouse, I'm a veteran, like then I would be all like, well, what's wrong with being a spouse? So it's kind of like it doesn't matter what you do, you're gonna mess up.
Right. And it's hard because females are like, you don't really know if they're a spouse. And I feel like there's male, I don't know, it was just kind of, there was a weird dynamic there, and I hadn't been to any military stuff out of the uniform. And that's the one thing, like when you're in, you wear your uniform and everybody knows you're a captain or you're a sergeant or whatever, and they can tell everything by looking at your chest to see like what your job is, everything. And so then when you go in civilian clothes and everyone's like you ran convoys, and I'm like, they're like, you don't look like someone who would do that, and I'm like, well,
which is so rude. Oh man, if everyone could just check their assumptions at the door, like no matter what they are, and I'm saying this for everybody, but gosh, that I can't imagine what that's like day in, day out. Or just even, I mean, it could be anything. Like, do you work or not work? Do you, do you have kids or not have kids? I mean, we could go down any rabbit hole we choose, but anyway, I appreciate what you're doing. What you're doing is super important to those in our group and every group out there, and on the interwebs in general, to be able to feel like they're being heard, whether they're telling their stories personally or they're identifying with stories that are being told. It is healing. You're not.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And there's so much misconfusion with like the law changed in 2016 that women could be in whatever career field they went. And it's interesting because I think about that. When I deployed, I was attached to an infantry unit, which I technically, if you think about it, I don't know how with the laws that were in place, I should have even been there, but I was, and I didn't ever think about that until like now, because I've read some articles about how like, well, women shouldn't be there, and I'm like, but we've been there like the whole time, but people don't know because we often don't talk about what our experience was like, and we didn't like make a big stink about it. They said, you're going with the Army to do this, and we're like, okay. No one's like, but I'm a female.
Right. You're not going to be like, wait. Where am I going to get my tampons from? No, sorry, that's too far. Anyway, well, I think what you're doing is awesome. We will link everything in the comments here. If you are a woman veteran in the group, we salute you. We think you're amazing. We welcome you. Please check out Amanda and what she's got going on. I'm sure, are you still accepting guest applications?
Yes. Yeah? I'm always accepting guest applications. I just might take pauses when I like actually record. But right now I'm recording. I'm trying to get everything recorded for the summer so I can take the summer off.
Yeah, the struggle is real. I totally know.
I know.
So tell everyone where they can find you online, social media, all the things.
Airman to Mom with the letters TO, not the number. It's but that's my handle on Instagram, LinkedIn. Yeah, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest, and Facebook, and that's my blog, airman2mom.com. And if you go to airman2mom.com/podcast, you can see all the podcast episodes, and that's where the link to sign up is as well.
So great. So great. So you guys check out the work that Amanda's doing and her podcast. Check out the stories that she's already told. If you have a story to tell, please reach out.
Yeah.
She would be a wonderful conduit for you to be able to tell that story. And again, if you have any questions about the Chantilly area, she's in the group. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer questions if you have them. We'll tag her and rope her back in. So in closing, I guess maybe I have one question. Is there anything that you wish you had known about we can open this up. I usually ask it concerning, one certain area, but is there anything you wish you knew before your last PCS?
I don't think so. There is a Facebook group in the Fairfax County, Chantilly area, and it's for the organization my husband works for, but if someone is moving to the Chantilly area, that's my 3-year-old.
He's fine. Hey, buddy. He's totally fine.
If they're moving to the DC area, the Chantilly area, and they want to be part of it, they can just connect with me and I can get them into it, because we want to be a place for people, because there's people who live out here who work at the Pentagon or all over, and they feel a little lost. So it's a great place to connect.
Okay. Thanks, Amanda. We really appreciate you sharing your time with us today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, everyone. It looks like we wrapped up just in time. So we want to just, again, thank Amanda for the generosity of giving us her time and sharing her information with us and her insights on the Northern Virginia area. And again, if you have any questions, pop them in the comments. We'll be live 3 times this week. So tomorrow we're going to be chatting about San Diego. And then on Thursday, we're going to chat about Colorado Springs. So be sure to join us. Click get notified so that you can not miss a beat. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Until next time. Bye.